So Garrett Crochet wasn't traded for numerous reasons. One, we talked about having an innings limit, having pitched way too much in the first half of the year. Like, if you were really going to trade him, the White Sox totally botched this. I remember you and I speculating that the most we were going to see out of him was 4 innings, but most likely 3 innings on his
Yeah.
opening day start against Detroit.
We thought
So,
he was going to be the opening day opener and just have an
yes,
opener role throughout the
right,
season. Pitch 2 or 3 innings a game, get through the season that way, build up his innings, and then be a full-time starter next year.
right. And
That's
and if
not what happened.
and if you really, I don't think the Sox ever thought about when they started the season. They were thinking, "Oh, we're going to trade this guy because he's going to be the one of the best American League starters in baseball
No, I
this
don't.
year."
Yeah, I think that's
And
fair.
and it morphed into that. But when you started to see that happening, maybe what you should have done at that point was taking him out after 4 or 5 innings during those
They
earlier
did
season
that.
starts.
They did, but that was like a week before the trade deadline
Yeah,
before they
it was
realized it.
way too late.
Yeah.
Like, you could have seriously had him if they had managed it correctly in May, starting in May, after getting through April and being like, shit, we might have lightning in a bottle here. They
Mhm.
could have probably had him, under 100 innings by the time you got to the trade deadline, which totally changes, to a degree, changes the trade landscape for him. Now, the other thing that changed the trade landscape for him was these crazy demands he put into place right before he's about to be traded, as if he was trying to sabotage any type of trade by saying
Sabotage.
sabotage, like, I'm not going to pitch in the playoffs if I don't get a extended contract, and like, who are you?
Yeah, that was actually his agent or his agency, CAA, made it known to all teams that he would not be pitching in October if he did not receive a contract extension, which completely undercuts the White Sox leverage, because the whole reason, or the massive part of the reason he was so valuable on the trade, potentially on the trade market, is because he would be under control for so cheap for the next 3 postseasons, not
Right,
just this one,
exactly.
but the next 2. So when you have the agent telling other teams that might potentially trade for him, now you're gonna have to sign him long term. That completely undercuts the White Sox and Chris Getz's position. So as much as I love ripping on the White Sox and Chris Getz or whoever. Actually, I haven't ripped on Chris Getz very much yet, but that's not his fault. I mean, Crochet's Crochet's the one that, I mean, it's his agent that said it, and Crochet just said no comment when he was asked about it, so which basically confirms it. Um, is that there's a couple questions that come with that. Like, number one, can you imagine a player being traded to another team, or any player on any team, getting through the season, then starting the playoffs? He just tells his teammates and upper management, "Nah, I'm not playing
Yeah,
unless
you
you give
didn't
me
give
a
me a
contract."
contract. Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
What the fuck?
it's it's impossible. I don't think he would even do that. I mean, this is definitely a leverage ploy, but I can't see that scenario playing out that way. But at the same time, the other question is, does he is he did he sabotage his trade value because he loves Chicago? Does he really want to be a White Sox for the next 3 years? Is that's the only explanation, other than a leverage ploy, trying to get a big contract
Yeah, I,
potentially, which was not going to work because
no,
it completely submarined his trade value. I'm confused. So
I think
is he
they
a head
over.
case? Like, what is? Did he get bad advice? Like, what is going on there?
Yeah, I think he got bad advice. They overvalued him. It was like they didn't take into account that he was at 117 innings and he'd only had pitched 79 or whatever it was, or 71 in his career. As like they took nothing into account what had occurred prior to this moment in time. That really, we talked about it. It was better for the White Sox actually not to trade him,
Yeah.
because he's going to have more value during the winter.
I
Just
think
like
so.
Lewis Robert will also, who did not get traded, will have hopefully more value in the winter because the Sox are probably hoping he has a strong finish of the season.
Yes,
And
yeah, he has to build that trade value.
and if he doesn't, I would suggest they have to roll the dice and keep him and look to the next trade deadline with hopes that he gets back to MVP form at the start of next season. Of
Yeah,
course, you
there's no
risk.
rush. There's
Yeah,
no rush on either
exactly.
of those guys. And we talked about it last show, and we posted that whole segment on YouTube. Do not trade Crochet or Robert at this point, and they didn't. So maybe they're following our advice, but there's no rush, and
Yeah,
especially when one of them's submarining his own value, his own trade value. You don't need to do that, and it might work out perfectly in this off season where they still have
exactly.
2 years of control. Crochet is not going to get as many innings, but his resume is building. It's just the question of next year, can he be a full-time? I think there's no reason to think, as long as there's no injury issues,
Right,
there's no reason to think he can't be a full-time starter without an innings limit. I mean,
right.
he's going to build up his innings this year that he can build upon for next year. So
Exactly.
Robert, like we said, had a mediocre first half and injuries to start. If he's strong in the second half, his trade value goes right back through the roof this offseason. So
Wordhole Media.